Today we're going to talk about the top 2 weakest links on a Jeep JKU. Along with these weak links usually come poor handling, tire wear, and even the dreaded death wobble. Now before I show you what the top 2 weakest links are and how to diagnose and repair them, let me give you a little background on where I come from and why I feel like these are one of the biggest issues with the Jeep JKU. Now, I've been an auto mechanic for the last 15 years. I worked at Chrysler for a good portion of that, and I was also service manager and technician at 4-Wheel Drive Hardware. These two things were always replaced pretty much at the same time. And when I was at the dealership, they had very low mileage when I started replacing these parts. The lowest mileage I've seen replacing these parts were usually around 30 to 40,000 miles. Pretty much brand new, so these parts should not be wearing out, but they are a big problem with these Jeeps. When I was at 4-Wheel Drive Hardware, if I didn't see a Jeep coming in that needed this replaced pretty much every day, then something was wrong, because you pretty much got at least one of these Jeeps in each day. So it become pretty much a routine that I was diagnosing and repairing these problems, and usually with these problems come death wobble. So I'm going to show you how to diagnose and repair these problems. But before we do any of that, we're going to go ahead and get wheel chocks on this Jeep, get the jack out, get the jacks under this thing, and get the wheels off of this. And then we're going to talk about the number one thing from the top 2 weakest links on the Jeep JKU. There it is, the steering kit. The steering kit on these things are just horrible. I'm actually replacing this steering kit with a crown. It's pretty much just a factory replacement. Crown usually holds up a lot better than the factory ones do. I installed a lot of crown over the years working at 4-Wheel Drive Hardware, and haven't had a lot of bad with them. So if you're not wheeling your vehicle that much, crown is not a bad replacement. So they're definitely pretty durable. So the drag link and the tie rod. So the tie rod is the bar that goes from knuckle to knuckle, and your drag link goes from your pitman arm, so from your steering gearbox down to it'd be your passenger knuckle is your drag link. And then this kit also come with a steering dampener, which steering dampeners just help with bump steer. So if you got somebody that's trying to sell you like a steering shock dampener setup, don't fall for it. Just get a decent steering dampener shock, or as long as your suspension is aligned right and there's nothing loose, just a basic shock like this will work pretty good. Now once you get bigger tires like a 37 and up, you definitely want to have a little bit better quality steering dampener. But something like this up to like a 35-inch tire, you'll be perfectly fine. You don't need dual steering dampeners. All that's doing is hiding problems. Heck, when I was working at 4-Wheel Drive Hardware, I had a TJ that come in that had 4 of these in the front of it. 4. You don't need that. They were just masking problems. It needed a lot of work in the front. They were just adding shocks like it's gonna fix the problem, but it's not. So let me go ahead. I'll show you how to diagnose steering kit is going bad, and I'm just gonna show you a fast, simple, easy way to do it. That all you need is a pry bar. So let's go ahead and get to it. Okay, the easiest way to check these tie rod ends on the drag link and the tie rod itself is I want to pry up on this tie rod end. So this tie rod it has a ball stud, and then that sits inside of a socket here, and the movement you're looking for in these are up and down movement or side to side movement. If you can twist your tie rod like that, that is perfectly fine. Now the easiest way to check these, you actually don't even need to have the tire off, but it's a little bit easier having the tire off. And I'm going to start working on it here so the tires are off and easier for you guys to see. Anyhow, I just get the pry bar somewhere that I can pry up on this tie rod end, go to the C on the axle, and I just pry up. And there I have movement up and down. It's not horrible, but it's starting to get bad, and the drivability of this Jeep is just horrible. So it has some worn, loose steering that we are going to address. So that is the easiest way to check your steering kit. Now, really quick, you might think, well, on your drag link up top here, you don't have the C to pry up on. It's actually pretty easy. I just go to the track bar and then I pry up on it. So very simple. You just got to find something that you can get your pry bar on and pry up on that tie rod end. We have a problem. So we have a problem. This is why you check your parts before you start on any air work. Before you start tearing anything apart, check your parts. If you haven't guessed what the second weakest link is, ball joints. I like to run Dana Spicer ball joints on my vehicles if I'm not doing a ball joint delete. If I'm doing a ball joint delete, then obviously I run the company that supplies the ball joint delete. But anyhow, I like running Dana Spicer ball joints and U-joints. I've been using them for years, and they've done really well. Even on vehicles that I take off-roading and beat on all the time, I've always had good luck with Dana Spicer replacement U-joints and ball joints. Anyhow, if you can't tell what my problem is, I was sent the wrong ball joints. Now, normally I just order either from the company I am getting stuff from, or I go to Amazon. Well, I wasn't the one that ordered these parts, but they were ordered from a big supplier that they do have a couple locations you can go to. I'm not going to name names. Well, I called them, gave them the order number, telling them that these ball joints are wrong. I mean, just look at these things. They're massive. And they were arguing with me over the phone on these ball joints being right. Obviously, we know they are not right. I looked up the part number for these, and they're for a Dana 60. No stock JK come with the Dana 60. You got a Dana 30 or a Dana 44. So these are not going to work. So I'm torn. Do I just drive an hour and try to get money back for them, or do I just keep them and put them in a Dana 60 that I have laying around? But the Dana 60, I thought about doing deletes on it. So do I get my money back, or do I just use them? I don't know. Leave me a comment. Whatever. Leave me a comment. Anyhow, the second weakest link is ball joints. I'm going to go ahead and show you how to check your ball joints. And I'm going to show you a very simple way on how to check your ball joints. So there won't be any questions if they're good or bad. You'll know right off the rip. So let's go ahead and check the ball joints. And you will need that pry bar that you used to check your steering links. The easiest way to check the ball joints is you need to get the load off of the knuckle or the wheel. Now, you don't have to take the wheel off to do this, but it just makes it easier to see. All I do is I take my pry bar and I slide it under the axle shaft and the C of the axle, and I'll just pry up and down on it. Now, when you do this, you also you'll also see that if the U-joints are bad, you'll probably get movement in that too. So you just got to pay attention to what's moving. If it's the U-joint, the ball joint, or if both are moving, because you'll see if they're both moving. Now, if you don't want to check it this way, what you could do is leave the tire on, and then you just take your pry bar, slide it onto the tire, and pry up and down on the tire. And then you watch your ball joints to see if they moved. This side didn't have a whole lot of play on it. The other side had more play than this side. So we'll go ahead and pry up on this side. If you can see there, it's hard to see in the video, but there's play there. It's not horrible, but the problem we're having is just everything is starting to wear out, and right now it's just best to replace all of that. So we're just gonna get it all new ball joints, all new steering kit on this, and just tighten this steering up and get the alignment done and see where we're at from there. Luckily, ball joints are pretty common on these Jeeps, so I have an extra set of ball joints that have been laying around for a little while, but they are brand new since the other company gave me the wrong ball joints, and they have been fighting me on it. We're just going to go ahead and use the ball joints that are correct that I have here. So anyhow, if you guys are interested in any of the parts or tools, specialty tools that I'm going to be using in this video, I will link them below in the description. They are affiliate links, so I may earn a small commission on them if you purchase through the links, but that is at no extra cost to you guys. And if you do purchase through my affiliate links, I would greatly appreciate it. It helps out the channel. Anyhow, we're going to go ahead and get to tearing this apart. So it looks like it's going to start raining in a couple hours, and then it's going to snow the next couple of days. So this has to get done, because if it don't, I'm going to be out here working in the rain, in the snow, and that is not fun, because last year I did lockers and gears on this driveway and it snowed. Not a fun experience. Don't want that to happen. So let's get to getting this steering kit off here, getting these ball joints out, and slamming this thing together. Before I take this steering kit off here, I'm going to get a measurement on the tie rod and the drag link just to have a rough start. When I put the new steering kit on, I'll go ahead and adjust it to that, and then I'll check my alignment. So I feel like the hardest thing to do when you're doing ball joints is unhooking your wheel bearing, the ABS wire back here. It is a pain to get to. You usually tear up your arms trying to get into that sensor plug there. Let's see if we can get in there and get it. So these plugs are usually fastened to the back of the shock tower. So sometimes it's easier to pop that off the shock tower first before you try to unplug it, because there's just not enough room back there. Sometimes you can get a pick in on the front side of that shock tower and just push on those pins there. Now my goal is to save this wheel bearing. It's still good. Sometimes that can be a pretty big pain because they don't want to come off the knuckle. But the goal is to save this wheel bearing. Also, normally when I do ball joints, I just go ahead and throw U-joints in there regardless if they need it or not, because I already have it this far. Why not throw them in there? But the owner doesn't want to do U-joints right now because it's going to snow tomorrow and they want their Jeep back. So I'm going to leave the axle and the wheel bearing together. But usually if I was going to do the U-joints, I would take the wheel bearing off and then pull the shaft out. Well, in this instance, I'm just going to leave the wheel bearing and the axle shaft together. I'm going to unbolt the wheel bearing and I'm going to try to spin this wheel bearing out of here without messing it up so we can just reuse it. So we're going to get this wheel bearing out of here. Okay, now we got all the wheel bearing bolts off on the back side of the knuckle. They're all out. There they are. They all come out. So what I do to get these wheel bearings off, now technically you don't want to hit on this back side here because you can mess up the wheel bearing. So what I like to do is I'll take either a punch, and you got to watch where you're hitting because you don't want to hit where the bolt hole is on the wheel bearing, because if you smash that, you won't get the bolt back in. So I try to hit down a little below it with like a punch, or I'll get the air hammer out. I like using the air hammer. And I try to just get the wheel bearing spinning inside the knuckle. And if I can get it spinning, it'll pop out. Usually this works for me every time. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and get my air hammer out. And I'm going to try to spin this wheel bearing inside this knuckle to see if we can get it out and save this wheel bearing. Once you get the cotter keys out of there, get the nuts off the ball joints, and then put the lower nut back on there. So when you hit the knuckle off with the hammer, the knuckle just doesn't fly off of there. This right here is what I like about this kit, is it has, so if you're doing a 4-drive to get the upper ball joint, you put this on the press and this will press the upper ball joint out. It is really nice. I'll show you how to use this. And the nice thing is it has some cups in here where you don't have to use, say like on this old press here, you got to use this plus one of these adapters. But if you go to this, you don't. So it's a lot easier to use your two hands, putting this, setting this press up with this kit versus this kit. Now it's not impossible. I've been just using this basic kit for almost 15 years. I've had this for maybe, I don't know, maybe 6-8 months now, and I've used it probably 4 times now, and I tell you what, it's worked really well. I love it. So if you are looking to invest and get a ball joint press, if you just get a normal press and then you want to do an add-on like I did, Harbor Freight, you can go there and get this add-on. If not, I think you can buy a press and the kit on Amazon. Maybe I'll try to find a kit that's similar to both of these together, and I'll link it below also. Alright, this is super simple. You just need to find a cup that fits over top of your ball joint, and it needs to have the top piece on it so you can press down on it. Then this is where this little part comes in handy. When you're pressing this out, just goes up into your ball joint just like that. Sneak your tool in here. Now, if you can use your impact on it. The nice thing, when you do a lift kit and you need to do ball joints, you can have this axle drop down and none of this will be in the way. So I'm gonna put my big breaker bar on this and I'll get this ball joint out. That was that easy. Now you just need a cup. Now you just need a cup for the lower one that fits over top of the ball joint there. So, and you need one that has the hole in it so the stud goes through it. So this is how we have the press set up. Now let's get the socket on the impact here. Now once you get tension on that and it seems like there's some strain with the impact, you want to stop. So what you need to do now is on the C here on the axle, you just take your hammer and hit the C. What that does, it kind of like shocks the ball joint and allows it to start loosening up. You can already see where the ball joint started to move. So now what I do, put a little more tension on it. Just like that. Now you got tension on it. See here, you can see the rough starting to break away from the ball joint. So you just keep putting tension on it and then keep shocking the C, and then this ball joint eventually come out here. There we go, now we're gonna keep moving. There it is, see it start coming out? And lower ball joint out. Now what I like to do after getting the ball joints out, I take a little Scotch-Brite and I just go in here and kind of clean up. It don't have to be perfect. I just go in there, clean up a little bit. Alright, we got the ball joints pressed in there. Now what you need to do is double check, make sure the ball joints are flush up against the C. You don't want to have any gaps between the C on the axle and the ball joint. They need to be completely flush, so make sure you check the top and the bottom. Right now what I'm going to do is go ahead and grease these ball joints. The lower ball joints, if you have a grease fitting on those, they're really hard to get to once you get the axle shaft in there. So I'm gonna go ahead and just pump a little grease in there, make sure they're greased before I get it all together. But the problem is I ran out of grease, so I have to run to the parts store and get some grease. I'm not gonna show you how to do the other side because it's just gonna make the video extra long, and it's the same way as what we just did here. So I'm gonna run to the parts store, get the other side tore apart, get it back together, and then I'm gonna get back on this side and we're gonna finish it up. Hopefully we can get it done before this snowstorm heads in here. If not, I might end up doing it in the snow. All right, so this video didn't go quite as planned. I was gonna do a whole video on putting this back together. If you can see here, I now have a hat on and a coat on. We had a lot of weather come in here. I went to the parts store, got the grease, and as soon as I got back, it got really windy and started raining really bad. I had a canopy up. Well, the wind just about ripped the canopy, so I just took that off. I left that up because it started pouring down rain. So I decided to call it a day, and then the next morning, it was only supposed to not snow at like 9 a.m. Well, guess what? It started snowing at like 5 in the morning and just blowing really hard. Well, it's somewhat snowing now, but the problem I have now, it's starting to get dark. Fortunately, my garage is just super small, so I do need to get a bigger garage. I normally work out of my buddy's garage, but we have a lot of stuff tore apart in there as well. So since we tore this all apart, you should have a good idea on how this stuff come apart. So it should be fairly easy to put it back together, just how it come apart. Definitely make sure you torque your stuff, put your cotta keys in it, take it for your test drives, make sure everything's good. I always like to test drive it for like 20 miles, pull it back, and just make sure everything's tight, nothing's falling off. So definitely do that. Also, if you guys would like to support the channel, I put a link in my bio for Buy Me a Coffee. So if you guys would like to support the channel, I would definitely greatly appreciate it. It all goes back to the channel to help me get better equipment for the channel. So if you guys would like to support the channel, definitely go check out that link in my bio for Buy Me a Coffee. I would definitely greatly appreciate it. But since I am not putting this back together, if you guys have any questions at all on how this is going back together, just comment and I'll definitely help you out if you're in this situation. But since it did come apart, you've seen it come apart, you definitely should have the gist, the know-how on how to put it back together. Also, if you guys ever ran into a problem like what I'm having now, it's actually going to get dark. So I got a lot of batteries charging and I need to get going because the next 3 days it's supposed to rain really bad, and then we're supposed to have like 7 inches of snow after that. So unfortunately, I'm not going to record this just because it's going to be dark. You're not going to be able to see anything. I'm not going to be able to see anything. But yeah, definitely leave a comment below if you guys have any issues with this going back together. But I would imagine, seeing how it come apart, you should be good putting it back together. But anyhow, thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. And you guys have a good one.